Today on Warhammer Math, we're ranking the core stratagems and figuring out how best to use them. Every detachment in the game comes with a little quiver of stratagems, and memorizing them is pivotal to becoming a better competitive player. But a lot of people forget that there are 12 core stratagems, many of them underutilized, that everybody can use. Today on Warhammer Math, we're going to be discussing each of them, we're going to rank them 1 to 12, and we're going to find a couple of sneaky alternative uses for each. So let's get this party started! We're going to do a little bit of a rundown, or a countdown if you will. So I'm going to start with the stratagems that I think are least clutch, and work our way towards the ones that I think are most awesome.
Okay, so this is kind of the 10 core stratagems ranked.
Yeah, ranked from what I feel are least useful to most useful.
Okay.
Yeah. So I realized it was honestly really, really hard to rank these. I do expect to get some pushback on my ordering of these, because a lot of this is based on obviously my own personal experience. I've got 2 armies and then just watching other people use them. Some of these are effective and they're not really super useful for my army, but I just see them being absolutely clutch. So I'm like, well, obviously that deserves a high ranking.
Okay.
So I'm really curious to see what other people are going to say in terms of what they think are the ordering of these.
Okay, so presumably though you're not ranking them just for your own army. You're just saying this is probably through the lens of the use of your army and your experiences. So
it's colored through the lens of me playing Blood Angels and Eldar.
Yeah.
But I really tried to pay a lot of attention to what I see other people using effectively against me.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm going to see. I wonder if I'm going to agree or disagree with you.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, there's 11 core stratagems, 12 if we include new orders, which just allows you to draw like new secondary cards. But I feel like a lot of newer players are just less familiar with these. And I feel like a lot of more experienced players don't necessarily see all the ways in which you can use these. So I really kind of want to highlight unusual play with some of these stratagems.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Some of them are probably very perfect for one faction or another and totally useless for another, right?
That totally happens. Yeah.
Cool. I'm excited. I bet you I'm going to learn a lot. I'm ready to learn all the stratagems that I should be using more.
And I really wanted to talk to you about the ordering of these more, but I felt like that would be kind of hard and kind of spoilery. So this was my own personal ranking. I'm very excited about this.
Okay. Well, I tend to disagree with my brother as much as I'm able. So,
well, the first one on the list you actually mentioned is one of the most powerful ones, which I think is really funny, which is Epic Challenge.
Dude,
I know that this is kind of a spicy take for least useful stratagem. I just feel like most games I don't use this. And so I just thought this can occasionally be incredibly clutch, but I also just feel like it's a niche stratagem where like there's only a handful of situations where it's useful. So when a character unit from your army is an engagement range of 1 or more attached units is selected to fight, one character model in that unit until the end of the phase, all melee attacks made by that model have the precision ability, which means they can then allocate wounds to the character model of their choosing.
And also means that you can't pick a non-character model in that unit to do it. It says a character model.
Yeah, got to be a character model. So I think this is situationally incredibly powerful. Sometimes it's really, really valuable to pick out a character from a unit. But I mostly see this used against large character-driven death balls, because if you're already expecting to wipe the unit, there's no reason to do this.
Yeah.
And if you expect that the enemy unit is not going to have very many models left, it's also probably not useful to use this. So especially if you have a character that's either really crazy fighty and you don't think you're going to kill it otherwise, or buffs the hell out of the unit, those are characters that you want to pick out. But one of the things you really have to keep in mind with this is that if you fail to kill the character out of the unit, you kind of wasted all those attacks, because now you're not killing other models in the unit, and now all those models are going to then attack you.
Except where does that intersect with the currently wounded model as the one that has to be the next to die?
That only has to be the case if they're not a character model.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right. So basically, like, if you don't think you can kill a character model, don't try and chip a couple of wounds away unless you have some other way that you plan to kill the model. Yeah, so if you're using this, make sure you can actually kill the character model, and make sure that it's worth it to have that character model dead rather than killing other models in the unit.
Yeah.
Because it's, obviously if you can kill other models in the unit, so there's less to swing back at you, that's preferable to having a damaged character that's still going to kick ass.
Right. You effectively not depleted the unit at all.
Mm-hmm. And something I really want to mention about this is in order to use precision, in order to attack the other character model, you have to be able to visually see it. So you can protect your character models by holding them or by hiding them behind walls, or as we saw with Dane's giant chaos mobs, just hiding them behind other giant models sufficiently so that they're not visible.
My demagogue was fully hidden by 4 ginormic torments. The Accursed Cultist torments are big chonky boys. And if you're very careful about arranging them as you make your move, you can make a wall.
That's true. But like, especially when I have units that have buffing characters, like the Sanguinary Priest that I love so much, like he doesn't actually do very much fighting. So I might just like keep him in the back so that I can hide him behind a wall in case someone wants to try and precision him out.
Right.
Because that would suck.
Right.
Totally. So believe it or not, I actually feel like this is the least useful stratagem because sometimes it is clutch. Most games I don't use it. Most games I don't see it used.
It's really, our decisions here then need to be a product of 2 things. How powerful it can be times how frequently we're going to use it. So if it's super powerful once in a million years, this is a totally crap stratagem.
Yeah. I would probably say I see this like somewhere between 1 in 5 and 1 in 10 games. Somewhere in there. 10 to 20% of the games.
Yeah, well, against the cult, it makes a big difference because the demagogue is the thing that grants the Accursed Cultist blobs their 5-up invulnerable save. So
yeah, it becomes very useful there if I don't think I can kill the rest of the blob.
Which often you can't. It's very hard to.
But another thing that's really annoying is remember, like when you pick a character out of a unit, for the rest of the attack sequence, that squad still gets that buff.
If you what?
So like if I were to kill your torment and you lost your 5-up invulnerable save, you'd still have the 5-up invulnerable save until the end of that attack sequence.
Because they're simultaneous.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
So keep that in mind as well. It's not like you can just like remove those buffs instantly.
That is good to know. That's important.
Yeah.
That makes me a little less stressed, except it's when you have precision shooting that it really stresses me out.
Yeah, I've definitely had captains sniped out by snipers
Oh,
from across the field. And like, I didn't see that coming.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to number 11 in our list, we've got New Orders.
New Orders? Is this new? Well, the name seems to suggest it is.
I feel like this is slightly more useful than Epic Challenge. Essentially, at the end of your command phase, one of your active secondary cards can be replaced by a new active secondary card. So that's for Pariah Nexus. This has been a stratagem that's been used in the last like several decks. I assume that something like this will be used in the future to occasionally redraw secondaries.
It's funny because it's kind of the opposite of at the end of your turn, you can discard a secondary to gain a command point. But at the beginning of your turn, you can spend a command point to get a new one.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I wanted to highlight with that is that effectively using this stratagem kind of costs you 2 command points if your other secondary is achievable. Because now you're spending a command point and you're not getting that command point at the end of your turn. So it's real expensive.
Wow,
actually.
that is an interesting way to look at it. Yeah. You are spending a command point to get a new one. And then if you successfully get what you want, you will not have a secondary that you can discard to gain a command point later.
Exactly.
It only costs you 2 CP then if you didn't have an alternative mechanism like Gretchen on an objective or something. If you already were going to get your 3rd command point, then this is not as expensive.
Exactly. So like if I were playing Eldar and had Eldred Ulthran, it doesn't make any difference because I'm always getting the extra CP anyway. And you can only get 1 extra CP per battle round. Sorry, 1 extra CP per turn. So one thing I will say about this is that I sometimes struggle when to use this because oftentimes you get a secondary early in the game that you don't think you can score, but you also have a lot of cards in there at the beginning of the game. You don't know what you're going to get. There's no guarantee you're going to be able to score it.
Oh, see, I'm not badass enough to be able to keep stock in my mind. Oh, well, I know this and that secondary are coming soon. That's definitely the next level of play that I'm sure you're thinking about a lot.
Yeah, if I'm using this, I'm always thinking like, what could come up? Like, am I likely to get something I can score? Right. So one thing I do want to mention is like later on in the game, or if you have really good board control, I feel like this is more useful because if you have more board control, you're more likely to get a secondary that you're going to be able to achieve.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Fascinating. Or if you think you have, if you have a significant control of the center, that increases. Specific locations can be used to weigh that decision too.
Especially the center.
Right.
Yeah, because so many actions have to be done in the center.
Right.
So I also say that this is not something that I like to use early in the game because you don't know if you're going to score it. You don't know like how much that CP is going to be worth. If you're using CP early in the game to like kill more models of your opponent, then it's more useful to use that early on in the game than later in the game. So usually this is something that I play in like the 4th or 5th battle round. Because then I know how far ahead or behind I am. I know some of the secondaries that have already come up. So I have a better idea of what could come up. And usually there's just less pieces on the field, which means I can be, depending on your army, I think you have a lot more flexibility to kind of do what you want later in the game because there's just less stuff going on. Like you're less likely to get foiled. Right. If you're trying to do something where there's no enemy units and you're like, well, great.
Things at that point, things fall into the categories of I can definitely do that. Or there's not a snowball's chance in hell I could do that. So you kind of,
So this is usually a late game stratagem for me. Actually, hold up. Let me pause for just a moment because if you've been enjoying the content, likes and subscribes help us a ton. But if you pick up some of our merchandise, that actually helps keep the lights on. We have some amazing designs that my brother designed, and they look awesome. And if you wear them, you're going to blow your friends away, and you should pick them up. It's going to be really great, and there's a link in the description, and back to the content.
Yeah. Blow your friends away.
Don't do that. And number 10 on our list, we've got Tank Shock.
Oh, yeah. This is one that really stresses me out. It's really clutch at the right moment. Wait. So you're saying this is number 10 on our list?
This is number 10 on the list.
Wow. I think I disagree with you. This shouldn't be here. So to reiterate, these are so far the first 3 are the 3 lowest scoring stratagems, secondary stratagems.
Yes. I find these to be the least useful.
Okay. Well, Epic Challenge being your lowest. I'm sorry. I need to take a moment and reflect. Bummer. I disagree, but only because I am in the midst of a game where you are stressing me out with it. So that probably has something to do with it.
That's true. I mean, having this threat of it is pretty nice.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't often come up.
Yes, the Epic Challenge is really just a threat strategy. It's useful in the abstract.
That's right. Knowing it's a possibility. So for Tank Shock, in the charge phase, just after a vehicle unit.
Sorry.
Right. So in the charge phase, just after a vehicle unit from your army ends a charge move, that vehicle unit, select one enemy unit within engagement range of that unit, select one vehicle model from your unit that was within engagement range, roll a number of d6 equal to the toughness characteristic of the selected vehicle model, and for each 5 up, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound to a maximum of 6.
Okay, so you charge him with a vehicle, and then you take the toughness of that vehicle. That equals a number of dice. You roll those dice. Every 5 up is a mortal wound to the thing it charged.
You got it. But there is a maximum of 6. And it used to be tied to the highest strength characteristic of the weapon.
Yeah.
Which I really, really liked, but they changed that.
Because then your Brutalis was just a monster at Tank
especially
Shock.
the Invictor. And it used to be that you got 2 extra dice if your strength was higher than their toughness. So I'd be rolling like 16 dice with the Brutalis.
Oh my God.
Sorry, with the Invictor. It was absolutely nuts.
What's the strongest weapon on the Invictor?
14, and then I get +2.
The Invictor has a strength 14 weapon on it?
Yeah, it has a more powerful fist than the other dreadnoughts.
What the schblob and what?
I know.
Okay, I have objections to this, whatever.
I know. Ahead. So what I would say is this is much like a grenade stratagem, except that you actually have to be in engagement range and you can only use it on vehicles. So I kind of see it like a more restrictive grenade stratagem, but for tougher vehicles, it obviously does a little bit more wounds, a little bit more damage.
Yeah, all the orc buggies are kind of a bummer. You want to spend a command point for 2 out of 2/6 of 7 dice? Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah. So the average damage, by the way, because you have a maximum of 6, if you take the toughness and divide by 3, you have a slight overestimate of how much damage you can actually do.
Why is it? So take the toughness divided by 3. Why only by 3? Why is that only an estimate?
Because you're maxing out at 6, which means you're cutting off the high end of what you can do. So your expectation value is going to be slightly lower than that. So actually, you can expect to do slightly less than 1/3 your toughness.
Interesting.
I did run some simulations, not some simulations. I did some calculations to figure out what the average number of wounds was going to be per toughness. So I'll show you that in a minute.
Okay.
But I just want to point out that it's slightly less than 1/3 of your toughness in general.
Okay.
But one thing that I wanted to point out that I don't see that many people using that I have used with great success with my dreadnoughts to a certain extent.
So we've gone 1, 2, and 3. Are you about to show us number 4?
Oh, no, I'm still talking about the way you can use tank shock.
Oh, gotcha.
Because one of the ways that I love to use tank shock is you can charge into something that has fewer wounds remaining, not that many. You can tank shock it, and if you kill it, you can then pile into something else. So you can use things like a springboard if they only have a few wounds left.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it doesn't mean that you're wasting a charge by charging something that's not very tough. If you're like, all right, I'm going to charge into this, mortal wound bomb it, kill it, and then attack what's next to it.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So that is something that you can do with the stratagem. So what I have here, this might be a little hard to look at. So this is damage done through tank shock by toughness. So on the left here, I've got toughness 8 vehicles. And you can see that like in toughness 8, you've got like a 53% chance of getting at least 3 mortal wounds. This is cumulative, by the way, cumulative distributions. So you've got like a 4-ish% chance of just not getting anything, like a 20% chance of getting less than 2 damage. And I did actually, maybe this is a good demonstration because this is how many times you would roll 7 or 8 5-ups. All of these are just going to be collapsed into 6.
Right.
Right. But because we're looking at, it seems like you should expect to get less than 3 mortal wounds through on average with the weighted average.
With toughness 8.
With toughness 8, but you're going to notice that like you still have a greater than 50% chance of getting 3 mortal wounds through. We got toughness 10 over here. You can see like the 50% mark is still at 3 wounds, but you've got like a 70% chance of getting at least 3 mortal wounds through. And for toughness 12, the 50% mark is actually at 4. So you've got like a 61% chance of getting at least 41 more, or getting at least 4 mortal wounds through. With a toughness 12 vehicle.
Okay, it really shakes out to be fairly predictable. Right.
Again, I love tank shock. I think this is a really valuable stratagem, but the fact that it's locked to vehicles is kind of what brings it down for me.
Right.
Because not every faction is highly dependent on vehicles.
Right.
So there's only so many places you can use it.
Cool.
Oh, by the way, comment for the comment god! Number 9 on our list is insane bravery.
Oh,
so
yeah. I don't think I've ever used it.
I think that this can be incredibly valuable. I use this almost every single game.
Wait, to clarify, you're justifying it being the 9 out of 12 useful, and your first words are, you think it's incredibly useful and you use it every game.
Yeah. But I only use it once because you're only allowed to use it once. But it's just, even though I feel like it might not be the most exciting stratagem, I feel like this is underutilized. I feel like a lot of people gamble with this. So let's talk about what it does.
It's just not that exciting. You're not like, this is so cool, I'm doing you're like, my guy's not running away.
And I think that dissuades people from using it. So you use it in the battle shock step of your command phase just before you take a battle shock for a unit. Then you select that unit and then you automatically pass your battle shock. So especially if you have like, a below half strength unit in your army that needs to accomplish something, especially if it's about to score in multiple ways, sometimes you're just like, I'm not rolling the dice. I need to score this because this unit is worth 8 points to me or whatever.
Right. That could be huge. So it's the product of frequency of use and utility derived. So like infrequent, but massive utility.
Yeah, but it's also kind of spotty utility because, even if you don't use it, you might still just be fine.
Yeah. Uncertain. It's like it's like vaccines. If they're doing their job, you will never see it happen.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, I kind of feel like this stratagem is almost auto use in the game. Like I use this probably 75% of my games. But the other thing is I kind of feel like, well, no, you have to take this before your battle shock test. So you don't get to take the battle shock test first and then just use it if you fail. You have to just be like, I'm not rolling the dice. I'm just doing this. But I kind of feel like this stratagem is way more useful in the end game. Because again, you don't know how much your CP are going to be worth. You don't know what you're going to have to do. There's just a lot of uncertainties early on. But later on in the game, you're more likely to have units that are below half strength. And you are more likely to be in a situation where you need a unit to do multiple things in order to score because you don't have anything else left.
Now, remind me, if you're below half strength, do you take a battle shock test just then or at the beginning of every turn?
At the beginning of every single one of your command phase. Well, in every single one of your command phases.
Before you would score.
Before you would score.
Right.
Yeah. So just real quick, some math here. If your leadership is 6 up, then you have a 28% chance of failing that. If your leadership is 7 up, then you have a 42% chance of failing it. And there are a few units in the game that have leadership 8, 9. Obviously, those are even more valuable. Because at leadership 8, you're going to fail 58% of the time. Leadership 9, you're failing 72% of the time.
Right.
Most units in the game seem to be leadership 6 or 7.
Right. I've seen a few 5s for really badass characters.
Yeah. So it's really hard if you have like if you have a 6+ leadership, you're like, I'm only going to fail like 1 in 4 times ish.
You're like, do I really want to? I might just roll. I feel like, actually, that's not entirely true. I have once used this, and I think I would continue even for now, be tempted to use the stratagem and then be like, let me roll and just see if I would have succeeded.
Yeah.
Or, oh, thank God, I did the right thing. Like as if it works that way. But somehow.
Yeah. But I mean, think of it this way. Like if you've got a 28% chance, I'm just going to say 1 in 4 chance of failing your roll, but they will score you 8 points.
Then you can think of it as 2 points.
It's like you just got 2 extra victory points.
And a command point is totally worth 2 victory points.
Yeah, but also it can be an 8-point swing. Like I've played so many games where the difference between victory and defeat was 8 points.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like towards the end, if you know that the game is close, you're probably more inclined to use this. If the game is not super close, maybe you can be like, meh. Like I'll roll them dice.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Pun intended.
Pun intended.
But I mostly only use this stratagem if I have a unit that needs to score me points in multiple ways. Both they need to hold an objective and they need to do an action on that objective or something like that.
Right, because then you really get your return.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, mostly an endgame stratagem. All right, moving on to number 8.
All right, number 8.
Smoke screen.
Can I read this one?
Yeah, you can read this one.
All right, so when do you use smoke screen? During your opponent's shooting phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its target. Who's the target of smoke screen? One smoke unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. These are always so wordy.
I know.
Like you have to read these 3 times if you're a new player.
Mm-hmm. They want to be specific though.
What is the effect? Until the end of the phase, all models in your unit have the benefit of cover and the stealth ability. Who ever heard of a stealth tank?
That makes sense. You're like shrouded in smoke or grossness or something.
Yes, in the abstract, an effect that is similar to stealth, I would say, is achieved.
Mm-hmm.
But a tank that is obscured by smoke is not stealthy. It's just noisy and hard to pin down exactly where it is. -1 to hit is the stealth, right?
Yeah, stealth is -1 to hit at range.
Right.
So you not only get the benefit of cover, but you also get -1 to hit. And like if you're in the open and not getting cover and you're getting -1 to hit, that can be a huge benefit.
So basically, if you this is what I need to be using on my Vindicator every turn, practically. Because this is
especially if you're not getting cover, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Because think of it this way, like if your opponent is hitting on a 3-up and you already have cover, getting the -1 to hit is about, a 25% reduction in their damage output.
And it is, unlike Armor of Contempt, it is not just a single attacking unit. It's until the end of the phase. Yeah, so like, dude, I can't believe, this is number 8?
This is number 8.
You must have some really, really high opinions of some other stratagems.
Well, the biggest thing for me is just that you have to have the smoke keyword in order to use it, and not everything has smoke. A lot of things don't have smoke. So again, I think this is an incredibly powerful stratagem, but I feel like it only works on things that have smoke. And yeah, I agree with you that I feel like vehicles are usually the place where you're going to want to use this.
Also, I think only vehicles practically have the smoke keyword.
A fair number of scout units have it as well.
Oh, really? They have like Batman pellets?
Right. And like that can be useful if you're like, I need the squad to not get eliminated because I'm going to use it to score later.
Right. Okay.
But I feel like it's really valuable on tanks.
Yeah, and it also depends on the value or the common shooting abilities of your opponent, because against orcs, you're cutting their shooting in half.
That's true.
So like that's a big deal against orcs, but like all your space marines that hit on 3s, meh.
Yeah. Well, actually, just as a quick example, I wanted to say, like, if you had something that was going to save on a 4, like maybe if I was shooting your Vindicator with like an AP2 weapon and I was hitting on a 3, well, then you have more than a 50%, you have more than 100% increase to your durability. Like half as much damage is going to go through.
Wow.
So my 3s are now hitting on 4s, and then you would have been saving on 5s, and now you're saving on 4s instead. And then you multiply those two durability buffs together.
Yeah, so times 1.5, and for the 5 up becoming a 4 up for save. So times 1.5 there.
I did it in terms of damage. So you're getting 66% as much damage and 75% as much damage. And if you multiply those, you're only doing 49.5%.
Oh,
as
you
much
did the
damage.
inverse.
Right, I did the
Gotcha.
inverse.
Okay.
It works the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like this would be higher on my list if more things had smoke.
Yeah. Okay, I buy it for that reason.
Yeah, that's the only reason it's down here.
The Vindicator is such a staple of my Chaos Army, and this is so clutch for me that like I'm kind of into it. Maybe that again, I can't help but look through the lens of my armies.
Yeah, I think you underutilize the stratagem.
Yeah, this destroys my orcs and is critical for my chaos. So I'm like, how could you not think Smokescreen is the totally tits? The bee's tits.
The bee's, Jesus. All right, moving on to number 7, we have the grenade stratagem.
Grenade!
Which honestly is it's more widely applicable than tank shock. It does less damage than tank shock, but just more units tend to be able to use it. And you can use it at an 8-inch range and not have to be in combat.
Wow, number 7. Like pretty much all the ones that I expected to see at the top have already been except for command point reroll, and probably a couple other ones. But
yeah,
damn, all the ones I expected to see here. Yeah. Can I read this one too?
Absolutely.
During your shooting phase, one grenades unit from your army, excluding units that advanced, fell back, or have shot this turn, that is not within engagement range of one or more enemy units. That is the target. And the effect is that grenades select one grenades model in your unit and one enemy unit that is not within engagement range of any units from your army and is within 8 inches of the visible to your grenades model. Jesus, roll a die 6 for each 4+ that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Okay, basically you have to your unit has to see an enemy unit. They have to be within 8 inches. They have to have the grenades keyword. Then you can use this stratagem and you roll a die 6.
Roll 6 dice.
It's 6 die 6 always.
Yes.
Gotcha. So it is in many ways, it's very similar to tank shock, except the number of dice is fixed rather than being related to the toughness of the attacking thing.
The more durable the target is, the more useful this tends to be.
And this is what you were intending to say with tank shock.
Same thing with tank shock. Like the tougher your target, the more valuable this is.
A mortal wound on an orc boy is not worth a mortal wound on a wraith lord.
Or a mortal wound on a knight.
A wraith, yes,
yeah,
exactly. You're probably tank shocking the crap out of knights when you play against them.
So a key thing about this, though, is that you have to use this stratagem before your unit shoots. So you can't shoot, see how much you still have to do, and then throw the grenades. You got to do that first. Which is a little bit rough. So usually what I do is if I have multiple things shooting at a target that I want a grenade, I will shoot with everything except for the unit that I want a grenade with, see if it's still worth it, and then chuck the grenades.
Gotcha. That is schmart.
But it's hard because you want to shoot with everything else and not shoot with the unit that's going to grenade stuff.
Put off the fateful decisions until you have as much information as possible.
Absolutely. Always want to do that if you can. So it can strip a couple of mortal wounds off of tough targets, and its average is actually 3 mortal wounds. You can expect on average to do 3 mortal wounds.
Because there's always 6 dice, so we don't have to do the weird thing where everything above 6 collapses into just a 6 and then skewing our average and then making our estimation graph not accurate.
You got it.
Thank you.
But the other thing is, also not very intuitive, you've got more than a 50-50 odds of getting 3 mortal wounds through. And here I actually do have the graph to demonstrate this, because here's the distribution, essentially your probability of getting however many 4-ups. And you can see that like there's a 31% chance of getting 3 mortal wounds. So the number of things that are less than 3, actually only like 34%.
Wow.
So it's like 2/3 of the time you can expect to get at least 3 mortal wounds through. Because you're going to get 3 so often.
Wow, there's so many ways to roll 3.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. That is very weird to think about because you really want it to be clean, simple math.
Yeah. But also notice there's like a 1.5% chance of just completely bouncing, which happened to me recently, and that was really annoying. But also about a 1.5% chance of just getting 6.
You recently threw a grenade and did no wounds.
And it was even more painful because all I had to do was do 1 wound.
Was this in a tournament?
It was in an event match, yeah. And I was like trying to kill the demon prince that was just about to kill me. And I was like, well, I only have to do 1 mortal wound to this demon prince. I'm just gonna throw the grenades and call it a day.
Oh my god! So what was your storytelling explanation for how that happened?
The demon just like ran past it and just mowed down all my units.
I picture dude totally just like dropped it. He was like, butterfingers. His hands were greasy.
The demon then just ran right into me and mopped up the entire unit.
So it was when he went back with it, it went the other direction.
He threw it backwards.
Oh!
So glad I have these super soldiers.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So grenades is pretty darn reliable. You're likely to get your 3 mortal wounds in, and you're definitely likely to get some mortal wounds through. And against a hard target, especially if you're like, I think I can come close to killing this thing, but my odds are low, this just nudges the odds in your favor.
Yeah. Everything becomes a bigger deal when it's likely to cross a threshold, like killing the thing. If you can kill a thing with your very expensive couple of mortal wounds, then suddenly that's a good price.
Absolutely. And I would say that I probably see the stratagem used in most games that I play. Someone's using it. I'm using it almost every game somewhere. My opponents are using it somewhere in almost every game.
We could actually use this as a lens that we could use to calculate the value. What's our current approximate value of 1 command point in terms of points? 50?
We used it based on the grenade stratagem.
Oh, is that what we're about to do?
No, that's how we came up with our original valuation of 50 points per CP. Was a grenade stratagem used into Mortarion.
Ah, okay. So according to this, yeah. Well, I guess that's...
And it depends on the target.
Yeah.
Totally depends on the target.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. But this is essentially a benchmark you can use and be like, well, 1 CP is worth 3 mortal wounds. What is 3 mortal wounds worth?
Yeah, 3 mortal wounds on my favorite target could be in a lot of points.
Exactly. All right, moving on to number 6. Go to ground.
I don't think I've ever done go to ground.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not the most strategizing capable.
Well, go to ground can be huge. 'Cause essentially, in your opponent's shooting phase, after they target one of your infantry units, you can just be like, well, I'm going to ground, and you automatically get cover, even if you're in the open. And you get a 6-up invulnerable save, which isn't worth very much, but, you know. But something I really want to point out about this is go to ground works for the entire phase. So everything that's shooting at it is now going to be, -1 AP effectively.
Right.
Does have to be an infantry unit, so you can't use this on vehicles. But unlike Armor of Contempt, like it works against all the targets. So it works for the entire phase.
So perhaps one should program into their brain every time they would consider Armor of Contempt, be like, wait. Should I go to ground instead?
Right. The difference is that Armor of Contempt can compound with cover. Also, Armor of Contempt works in melee, whereas this only works at range.
Right. Good point. Okay.
But I think probably the most important thing that I have to say about it, which might be obvious to a lot of viewers, but the better your armor save is already, the better go to ground is.
Right.
So if you already have a 2-up save, then go to ground is going to be really, really valuable to you.
Right.
Because if you're going from saving on a 3 to saving on a 2, you're taking half as much damage.
Yeah. That's so huge.
Right. If you're going from a 4 to a 3, you're taking, 33% less damage.
Again, my Vindicator loves it.
Yeah. So I typically save this mostly for 2-up save things. If I have to choose.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
If such a choice can be made.
But again, like if your save is, if you're going from a 7 to a 6, like that's only like a 16.6% increase. If you don't have a good armor save already, it's probably not worth using.
Right.
All right, finally, moving on to the top 5. Yo, before we go too much further, I just wanted to take a moment to shout out all the patrons, because this is a ton of work, but it's those guys that are really making it possible for us to continue to make this awesome content. So if you want to support us further, if you want to see more content like this, take a look in the description. Join our Patreon, join our growing Discord community, and become part of the channel. Back to the content.
Okay, finally. Now we're getting to the real spicy ones.
Now we're getting to the real spicy ones.
We're going to sprinkle some delicious new sprinkly nuggets.
So, your favorite for number 5.
My favorite?
Command reroll.
Okay, I'm just happy it's not number 1 because that would have been such a lame conclusion. Be like, and after all of that, command reroll. All
yeah,
right,
I mean,
cool.
this is probably the stratagem that is used the most often, but I definitely feel like people overuse this stratagem.
Well,
it's just so easy to overuse.
Yeah, it's so easy to reach for. It's like, and it's precisely combating the bane of all war gamers' existence, the bad dice roll. Like,
yeah, you can just reroll your dice, and you can use it on a hit roll, a wound roll, a damage roll, a saving roll, an advance roll, a charge roll. Definitely that charge roll. Because I play Blood Angels, I'm really aware of that.
Yep.
Because I have failed 3-inch charges before and been very upset that I didn't have any CP. But a lot of people forget that you can use it both for desperate escape tests and for hazardous tests.
Dang,
so
okay.
Something to keep in mind about this is that essentially the more likely you are to pass your roll, the more valuable the command roll is. So if you succeed on a 2-up, using a command reroll really makes a lot of sense because you're going to change the outcome 5 out of 6 times.
Right.
So
assuming you've already failed.
Assuming you've already failed.
Which is when you would consider it.
But like, as you mentioned earlier, like if you're only succeeding on a 5-up, command reroll is really hard to justify because you're only going to change the outcome 1 in 3 times.
Also, the earlier it is in, say, an attack sequence, the more likely it is to find a new barrier later when you fail a different roll.
Yeah.
So it really should not be used on hits at all if it can be.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll use it on number of attacks, but even then I kind of feel like that's a waste. Because even if you're going from 1 attack to, 3.5 attack, that's 2.5 extra attacks on something. And I mean, for a Vindicator, for like really high power weaponry, maybe. But most of the time it doesn't feel like it's worth it.
It really, it should not be. Yeah, agreed. Definitely on number of damage. Can you do it on a damage roll?
Yeah, you can do it on a damage roll.
That is a clutch use of a command reroll at times. Because like you got a die 6 damage weapon and you roll a 1 or a 2. And there's no, after you find out the new answer, there's nothing else that can block it. It's already all the way through.
That's true.
Damage rolls feel like a good option. Damage rolls, charge rolls.
Charge rolls are definitely where I feel like they're the most crucial. Because if you get caught out, and you're stuck in the open, you can't finish your charge.
Again, that's through the lens of a Blood Angel player.
I think that's true for anyone who has melee units. If you have any melee units, that's crucial.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong about that, but I am going to say that if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
But kind of comparing it to the grenade stratagem, like you mentioned the damage, if you rolled a 1 for your damage roll, if you re-roll it, that gives you an average of 2.5 more damage.
That's pretty big.
Instead of 3.
If that's you have on a big 2 target,
and you re-roll, you're getting an average of 1.5 more damage. All right, so half as useful as grenades.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah, so I will sometimes command reroll if I get a 1 on damage and there's like a crucial threshold that I'm trying to cross. I don't usually like using it in the attack sequence very often unless I'm like killing this one thing makes the difference between a bunch of swing back or not.
Right.
Yeah. That's when I think about that. The other thing that I really like using this for is I actually love using this both on hazardous rolls for certain units, because that can save a whole model. And again, you're only failing on a 1. And desperate escapes, because very often someone will try and move block me by nuisance charging something important. But if you desperate escape, you can desperate escape through that enemy unit to say, get onto an objective. And normally you're only going to fail that 1 in 3 times, which costs you a whole model. But if you have a command reroll, you're only going to lose that model 1 in 9 times. So is it worth 1/9 of your tank to move it past your opponent onto an objective, sometimes that can be really, really useful. And in my experience, most people aren't expecting that.
Right. And I feel like, again, to bring up the Wraith Lord, I feel like you have a spectacular candidate for it.
Why is that?
Because it can go in, take a punch from just about anything, and then step back out and expect to be mostly okay. And has a very narrow base.
So it's more likely to be wrapped, is what you're saying.
It's more likely to be wrapped, and it's also more likely to be able to clear and find a footprint outside of whatever's wrapping it with a small base.
That's true. Yeah.
Although, how far does it move?
8 inches.
That's not a huge move, but
yeah,
with an 8-inch move and a small base, you could probably find a pocket.
Yeah, that's
It took an insane unit to prevent you from having a pocket.
But remember, your Desperate Escape can be an offensive move in addition to being a defensive move, if you're willing to spend command points on re-rolling your Desperate Escape. It can sometimes be risky, but I have done that a number of times and scored extra points. All right. Number 4, Heroic Intervention. I think this is a completely clutch stratagem. So after your opponent charges one of your units, then you can target a different unit that's within 6 inches of them, 6 inches of the charging unit, and then you just get to charge in.
And it doesn't have to be a character unit anymore.
Doesn't have to be a character unit anymore. Just any unit can now countercharge. The downside is you don't get your charge bonus, which means you don't get fights first if you use Heroic Intervention. So your opponent is still going to swing before you do unless you have fights first.
But also, they're likely to already be in base-to-base contact wherever possible, right?
Yeah.
Which means if you're careful about where you put your heroically intervening character, they might only have 1 or 2 models that can even target them.
Yeah. So sometimes if like the opponent's models are all tied up, and again, it totally depends on your charge roll, but you can try and just tag 1 or 2 models. But sometimes you just roll big and you're like, crap, I have to touch you everywhere. Bad touch. Importantly, this cannot be used after a pile-in move. So after your opponent fights and then piles into something else, you can't heroically intervene. So if you want to tag something, but you're afraid of getting heroically intervened, you can charge something next to it and then pile into that unit. So that is very situational, but that's important.
That you can only select a vehicle. What was this limitation you're saying?
So it's that you can't use it after pile-in move. It has to be in the charge phase, not in the fight phase.
Okay, yeah. It has to be immediately after they've charged. As soon as somebody is piled in, that means they've started their fight sequence, which means it's too late.
Yeah. And also, if you use some other reactive move to get into combat or something, you can't use it then either. So it specifically has to be in the charge phase. One of the things that I like to do is I really like fights first. I really hate getting charged. So I like to sometimes have fights first units tagging along with other important units so that if that unit gets charged, I can then heroically intervene and try and cut down some of those units before they can fight me.
Like your Banshees.
Like my Banshees or my big old Captain and Sanguinary Guard unit. Or for a lot of people, Blade Guard and Justiciar can be really, really useful. There's a lot of fights first stuff in the game. And so using them to tag along with other units can be a really, really good deterrent.
Is there a vanilla Chaos Space Marines fights first unit?
I don't know. We'd have to look.
I can't think of one. Somebody in the comments tell me what I don't know.
Yes.
Well, I want to know, since I'm so bad at this, tell me what Orcs and Chaos units I should use that have fights first. Or if they don't exist. There's got to be an Orcs unit that fights first. Maybe.
I don't know. We have to look.
All right.
So other things to keep in mind with this is that the only vehicles you're allowed to use this with are walkers. So vehicles generally can't heroically intervene unless they're walkers.
Oh, that's kind of nice.
So one of the reasons I love having so many dreadnoughts because they can heroically intervene. The last thing that I wanted to say about heroic intervention is that this is a stratagem that can absolutely be used offensively. And I feel like I know this because this has been done to me a number of times when I started playing competitively. But if something charges you, you can use your heroic intervention move to then sling some units onto an objective. which can be really useful. So if your opponent is not terribly careful and you have positioned multiple units that are close enough together, after your opponent charges, you can heroically intervene, and you can then use all that extra move to get onto an objective that is nearby. So you can steal an objective from your opponent.
Oh.
And I love using this trick. It is
so
handy. But especially because like your opponent is like at that moment, it's their turn. They're very offensively minded. They're like, what can I do to hurt my opponent? They're not really thinking very often about the extra move that you can get in their charge phase.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So I've been screwed by this a number of times, and as a result of the lessons that I have learned from others, I have now screwed other people over with this a number of times.
Oh, good.
So that's probably my favorite way to use heroic intervention.
So describe again, they charge into you and they are careless in that they leave the back end of their unit on an objective or something?
It doesn't even have to be on the objective, because if you heroically intervene and you can't place any more models in base contact with your unit, you can take units and string them like way far back. You can actually get a lot of extra movement if you have the right configuration of models on the board.
Oh, so say you heroically intervene into a unit that is nearly completely walled off, you can effectively use your heroic intervention move freely.
Well, I mean, you have to follow all the same charge rules.
Which is get closer to the enemy mod.
And base them if you can.
But if they're already completely based, then you're basically liberated.
Right. This especially ends up being useful if you have a heroic intervention unit that's kind of strung out a bit. So maybe some models just aren't going to make it into combat. Well, those models are incredibly free to go where they want to go.
Oh, wow. Interesting point. So you, rather than completely closing off all sides of their base to call them based, you could just say, well, these guys can't make it anyway. So because they can't make it, they're liberated for that reason.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Exactly. All right. Moving on to number 3. Fire overwatch.
Okay, I guess I understand why this is a really important, highly scored one. Yeah, no, I have no qualms with this.
Yeah. This is one that I tend to use a lot less often, but I see it used with crazy efficiency. And essentially, after your opponent makes a move or a charge, your opponent's move or charge phase has to be in those 2 phases. Then after they make a move, an advance, a fallback, or declare a charge, you can then shoot that unit. But you have to be within 24 inches, the unit has to be visible, and you're only going to hit on 6s, unless stated otherwise. So you lose a lot of your shooting capacity, but if you're knocking off a couple of models from a unit that's trying to wipe out one of yours, that can get you past the threshold of that unit no longer wipes mine.
Yeah.
Or that unit no longer has enough OC to like take the objective or whatever. One thing that they did do, I don't see the restriction on here specifically. Maybe that's in the indirect fire rules, but you can no longer fire Overwatch for indirect fire. You have to actually, it's because it has to be visible. Right, unit is visible.
Right.
So you can't fire indirect fire as Overwatch, which used to be a little bit broken at the beginning of the edition.
Yeah, that's pretty dumb.
So oftentimes, sometimes you're wiping squads with this. But for the most part, what you're trying to do is just damage a squad enough that it can't accomplish whatever it's trying to accomplish.
Right.
Obviously, don't forget to look out for this. This is something that I sometimes forget to look for. I've been surprised by Overwatch before, and that can be incredibly game-changing. Oftentimes, before I even start a game, I'll ask my opponent, like, what units do you have that are good at overwatching stuff? Because usually, your opponent knows, like, some units are good at it, some units are not. A lot of my units are not. So I don't usually think about it personally for my armies, with a few exceptions. So the best keywords for this, obviously, are torrent, because then you automatically hit. So flamethrowers especially love Overwatch because they just hit all the time. Sustained hits are really, really nice because it effectively doubles your efficiency with Overwatch because every hit is then 2 hits.
Right.
Lethals are really similar, but it kind of depends on your toughness. And reroll hits can be really useful because if you're rerolling hits, then you got an 83% increase to your probability of actually making that hit, which means reroll hits is almost as good as sustained hits when it comes to Overwatch.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, it combines with other things because there are a lot of things in the game that will overwatch on a 5 or sometimes even a 4, and then reroll hits makes a really big difference.
Yeah, I feel like for me, the only unit I've ever really wanted to use this on, actually, the Flame Boys, Burna Boys, but the Rubric Marines, because they have, is it only AP1 now? They have AP1 Flamers.
I think so.
Might be AP2. I don't know. They have really mean Flamers. And I feel like I don't use them often enough because an Overwatch threat can be so nice.
Yeah. I don't always live up to this, but I like to have at least 1 or 2 things in my armies that can overwatch well, even if it's not a core part of my strategy, because I want to give my opponent something else to think about. And I want to be able to put them in a position where my opponent has to choose if they want to brave that overwatch or not.
And honestly, I feel like your Warp Spiders are particularly good at this because they have such a small footprint, which means they can easily find a shadow to stand in and then also bring to bear really enormous power with them.
Yeah.
Yes, they're very fragile, as are all Eldar. I get it. But like, man, do they... Oh, those Warp Spiders. Jesus.
But I will also say that I feel like that's kind of baked into to the way that they function, in the sense that for the points, like they basically have 5 flamers, but they have 5 flamers they get to shoot and then get to overwatch in your opponent's turn. But if they don't get both, they're probably not doing enough damage to justify their points. So
How much do they cost approximately?
95 points. All right, moving on to number 2.
The second best is counteroffensive.
Counteroffensive.
Okay.
This is a hard one to use because it's 2 CP, but oh my God, can this make such a big difference?
Yeah.
So in the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has fought, you can play the stratagem, and then one of your units in engagement range can fight next. So if your opponent charges you with a bunch of stuff, they get to attack first, but then you can get the second attack. You can get the swing back.
Right.
Which can basically go from your opponent was about to wipe you, but you wiped them instead. So you don't lose your unit and you kill your opponent's unit.
It's a big swing.
That can be a really big swing.
Wow.
So
most of the time, I feel like it doesn't come into play as often as you'd think, though, because there are rarely multiple critical new combats happening at once. Like, at least for me, I guess as Blood Angels, that might be different, but I feel like you're sort of designing it in such a way that that doesn't happen. So the counteroffensive doesn't come into play. Like usually you'll set it up so if there's another combat going, it doesn't matter as critically.
If you can, but like for some armies that are melee focused, it can be really hard to like avoid that. So actually at the beginning of my turn, one of the first things, if I expect to do more than 1 charge, the first thing I think is, does my opponent have 2 CP? Do I have to worry about a counteroffensive?
Right. I feel like I struggle with this one particularly a lot because as orcs, my entire army gets advance and charge the same turn, which means I'm about to have a bunch of new combats. So a bunch of fights first, which means lots of opportunity for this making a big difference.
Absolutely.
So on the Wog turn, I'm like, son of a gun, they're going to counteroffense me.
Right.
I always know it.
Yeah, so I would say, like, if you intend to charge more than one thing, like, ask yourself at the beginning of the turn, before you plan out what you're going to do, does my opponent have 2 CP? Is it a possibility they will do this? And if they can, you have to essentially think, how many good melee units does my opponent have? Because if you can just charge 1 good melee threat, and then
make sure that unit fights before they can counter,
and then your other charges go against things that are less melee focused.
Only charge 1 melee powerhouse at one time,
if you can help it.
That is very good advice for me specifically. I will take that home and I'll put it in my pocket. I guess I'll put it in my pocket and then take it.
Yeah, but at 2 CP, it's really, really expensive. But and this can be hard to do. I usually try and go into my opponent's turn with 2 CP if I can. Because even if I don't intend to use this, I want my opponent to worry that I'm going to use this. But it's really hard, especially in the early game, to like try and have 2 CP set aside.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, generally I try and not use CP on the first turn if I can, just so I can have some extra CP banked.
Yeah.
I really try hard to do that. Like I will not command reroll anything in turn 1 if I can help it.
It sort of feels like the Warhammer equivalent of being on the balls of your feet.
Yeah, totally.
Like, you don't want to be on your heels.
Exactly. All right. So does that tell you what my last stratagem is going to be?
If I were more on top of things, probably. All right.
Number
what's number one? Number one.
Rapid ingress is a crazy powerful stratagem.
And it's only 1 CP.
It used to be 2 CP at the beginning of the edition.
It could justifiably be that.
I'm not going to lie, I kind of feel like it should be 2 CP. And as someone who uses it in every single game, and that is my plan at the outset, it hurts me to say that, but I really actually think this one should be 2 CP again.
Yeah. This makes a big old difference.
Mm-hmm. So you wait until your opponent's move phase, the end of their move phase, after they brought in all their reserves, and then your opponent pauses, and then you get to place a unit from strategic reserve as normal. And then they go about their turn. So you are open to getting shot, you are open to getting charged, but if you place yourself carefully, you're going to get your whole move, and then you're going to get to shoot or charge or do whatever else it is that that unit wants to do.
Oof.
Which means if you're careful with it, using rapid ingress means that you can pretty much guarantee that one unit will get to do damage. And probably pretty close to where you want it to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is half of the mechanism of the nearly broken warp talons too, which is that the warp talons, if they defeat a unit in melee and are no longer in close engagement range, at the end of your turn, the controlling player's turn can just get stuck back in the air, and then on your opponent's turn you can rapid ingress them, and then on your turn you go in, you can back and forth. Drop them in a safe spot, charge, kill a thing, disappear with the rapid ingress. It's pretty badass.
So pretty clear, like their ability specifically says they go back into reserve. It doesn't say that it comes back in the next reserve phase or the next strategic reserve phase.
I'm fairly sure it just goes straight back into reserves.
Because there are a number of units that kind of have an ability like that, but it specifically says they have to come back in your next reinforcement step.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I think you're right, though. I think the Warp Talons don't have that, which is pretty crazy.
Which is why now the double-sized squad is super expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because then it really is effective at that.
That's crossing some thresholds.
Yeah.
That's wiping units.
So I will say that I feel like this is especially useful for melee factions, especially melee factions or melee units and melee units that are relatively slow. Like Terminators, I feel like basically have to be rapid ingressed every time. Like I almost feel like there's no point in using them other ways.
Right.
Personally. It also works really well for short range shooting things. Like sometimes I'll like to take some eradicators and just rapid ingress them from a board edge because they want to be within 9 inches in order to get that melter rule. So a lot of units that benefit from short range shooting can also make really good use of this. I feel like a lot of people tend to only use this with deep strike units, and I definitely feel like it's better with deep strike units, but I don't think you should ignore it for other units. Because coming in from off the table edge can make a big difference. I love doing this with my Brutalis Dreadnought. I mean, I do sometimes effectively get screened out from doing it, but like when a Brutalis comes in and I'm like, yeah, you want to like shoot out with this one squad and then I'm just going to come and squash you? Like, absolutely.
Because the Brutalis has a horde, not a horde move, a reactive move, right?
No, it doesn't.
Oh, did it at one point? It did at one point.
No, the Death Company Dreadnought has a reactive move.
Oh.
Which is basically the same thing, but with a reactive move instead of Mortal Wound Bomb on the charge.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they're very, very similar units. But my point is that like you can take foot slogging units and still use rapid ingress on them pretty effectively.
Wow.
I personally like to always keep at least one unit in reserve because even if I don't plan on using rapid ingress, I want my opponent to worry about it all the time.
You want to bully them into making suboptimal moves.
Or just screening things out that they wouldn't otherwise have to screen out.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you're actually going to use it. You just want your opponent to see all the threats, all the things that you could do so that they have to work around it. I will also say that I feel like one of the balance issues that I see is that rapid ingress is so much better if you go second than if you go first. Because then you can rapid ingress on your opponent's turn 2, which is before your second turn, and then you can use them on your turn 2.
Interesting.
Whereas if you went first, then you have to, rapid ingress them on your opponent's turn 2, and then you get to use them on your turn 3.
Right.
So I mean, I feel like most people agree going second is better, and this is just one more reason why going second is better.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my intention is probably to use them on some obliterators soon, because if you can rapid, as you pointed out, it's really good for short range shooting. So they're going to hop in someplace with their once per game indirect fire and wipe some dumb space elves off the planet.
Yeah, I expect that will probably happen.
I'm excited. We're playing a game in the other room right now. And a game for us takes like a day because we have so many other things we have to do. But it's happening.
When have we gotten a game done in a day?
Okay, fine.
It takes
I'm
2 or 3 months.
Maybe I'm under-exaggerating. 2 or 3 months, yes, of continuous play.
You just, phase by phase, 1 unit at a time.
Yeah.
Per day. All right. And that is all of the core stratagems. This is my list of which ones I think are the most useful. And we would love to hear your opinions on this. Because again, I know that my opinion is skewed. Listening to Dane makes it really clear that my opinion is skewed towards the games that I have played. So
which things were put in the wrong order?
Yeah. What was your experience? What order would you have put these in?
What's the stratagem that stresses you out the most?
Other than rapid ingress, because it's rapid ingress.
Yeah, everyone knows. Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to go finish that game?
Yeah.
Do you want to face the cult for real now?
I can't wait to tear down the cult.
The purple and magenta tide is coming in.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to kick your butt.
All right, let's do it.
Right.
Sweet.
Bye, Warfiends.
Thank you for watching another episode of Warhammer Math.
For the Emperor!
Y'all are the homies. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Likes for the like throw.